Vela's fingers brushed the coarse, gray weave of the thermalcloth as she pulled it tighter around Julian's neck. The obsidian throne hall was drafty, the vents from the lower magma chambers pulsing with a low, tectonic rhythm that mirrored her dual heartbeats. Julian remained perfectly still, his warmth a steady, rhythmic pressure against her crystalline side. The session was about to begin. 18 cycles ago, she had chosen him from the refugee lists of a dying world. Today, standing before the High Council and the generals of the Reach, she would choose him again, even if the universe continued to stare. The sovereign settled into the obsidian throne, the glass smooth and biting cold against her back. Julian moved with her, taking his place exactly one step behind her chair, exactly where he always stood. It was the position of a servant, yet he held it with the gravity of a sentinel. She could feel the heat radiating from him. Humans were so wonderfully inefficient with their internal energy. To her infrared sight, he was a glowing ember against the dark, jagged landscape of the hall. She reached back, her hand momentarily brushing his wrist. His pulse was steady. He did not need to look at her to acknowledge the touch. He simply existed within her space, a constant in a universe of shifting alliances. The molten veins in the floor hummed, casting a flickering orange light that danced across his jawline. She felt a surge of possessive satisfaction. He was hers. Crithian crystalline skin refracts light at 1,200 nanometers, primarily in the infrared spectrum. Their emotional state is literally visible as color shifts to species with a wider visual range, though to most outsiders, they appear as static, unmoving statues of glass. Vela kept her surface a deep, impenetrable indigo. The great doors swung open on hydraulic hinges. 3 generals of the United Reach marched in, their heavy boots clanking against the polished volcanic glass. They did not look at Vela first. They looked at Julian. General Cax, a multi-limbed Zorian with eyes like polished spheres of oil, let out a clicking sound that translated as a derisive sigh. He leaned toward his adjutant, not bothering to lower his voice. She keeps it close like a wounded creature. Endearing, really, Cax whispered. Vela tilted her jaw upward and said nothing. Her skin remained motionless, hiding the white-hot flare of irritation deep beneath her crystalline surface. She watched as they approached, their posture radiating a condescending pity that they thought was well disguised. They saw a sovereign who had weakened her house by taking a consort from a soft-world species. To them, Julian was a liability. He was a frail thing of skin and bone that would shatter under the slightest pressure. Julian didn't even blink. He remained a shadow behind her throne, his breathing so quiet it was almost non-existent. "Sovereign Kryn," Cax said, stopping before the dais. "We come to discuss the border stability, though I wonder if your distractions have left you time for such matters." "My time is managed well, General," Vela replied, her voice like grinding stones. Cax gestured vaguely toward Julian. "A human. It seems an odd choice for a woman of your standing. They are so easily broken. If you required a pet, there are hardier species in the verge." 3 generals flinched as a vent released a sudden, high-pressure hiss of steam from the molten floor. Her human didn't even blink. He simply stared at a point just above Cax's head, his expression a mask of bored indifference. Vela felt a ripple of pride. They had no idea. The negotiation had not even begun when the alarms screamed. It was not the rhythmic chime of a scheduled drill. It was the jagged, discordant wail of a perimeter breach. The obsidian walls vibrated, a deep, bone-shaking groan echoing through the structural glass of the hall. Suddenly, the far wall did not just break. It detonated inward. Chunks of volcanic glass flew like shrapnel, slicing through the air with lethal velocity. Through the dust and the heat shimmer, a shape emerged. It was 4 meters of hunched, biomechanical nightmare, a runaway war construct. Its self-repairing plating hissed as it reconfigured. The plasma core in its chest glowed with a sickly, unstable violet light that washed out the orange glow of the magma. The general scrambled, drawing sidearms that looked like toys against the massive machine. The construct's sensors swept the room, locking onto the highest energy signature, the throne. This primary limb, a hydraulic crusher tipped with heat-sink claws, began to whine as it charged. Vela felt Julian step forward. He did not run. He did not panic. He simply moved into the path of the machine, his shadow falling across her lap as he moved to stand between her and the god of steel. The machine's optical sensors flared a violent, predatory red as it recalibrated its targeting array. Vela gripped the arms of her throne, her crystalline skin shifting to a sharp, jagged charcoal. She did not call for her guards. She did not command her generals to act. She simply watched the man she had claimed as her own, his back a broad expanse of vulnerable, heat-radiating skin. Julian did not look back. He did not have to. The bond between them was not a matter of ceremony. It was a physical weight, a tether humming with the same frequency as the magma vents beneath the floor. "Stay behind me. This won't take long," Julian said. His voice was terrifyingly level. It carried no tremor of fear, no hint of the frantic adrenaline that usually governed human encounters with superior technology. It was the voice of a man stating a boring, undeniable fact. The construct lunged. It moved with a speed that defied its massive bulk, its hydraulic limbs screaming as they forced 4 meters of metal and synthetic muscle into a killing strike. The floor beneath its weight cracked, sending splinters of obsidian flying into the air. The Zorian generals dove for cover, their multi-limbed bodies a blur of panicked motion as they scrambled away from the inevitable carnage. They expected to see a human pulverized into a red mist. Julian met the machine halfway with a stride that carried no hesitation. He stepped into the strike, his body a fluid arc of motion that seemed to slow down the world around him. As the construct's primary crusher swung down, Julian didn't dodge. He reached out. A low, thrumming vibration began to ripple through the air, a sound that was not heard so much as felt in the marrow of Vela's crystalline bones. It was the sound of air being compressed, of reality being folded by a mind that saw the universe as nothing more than a series of fragile equations. A psionic detonation erupted. It was not a flash of light, but a sudden, violent distortion of the heat shimmer in the hall. The air itself seemed to punch outward in a circular shockwave that flattened the remaining steam vents and sent a wave of pressure against Vela's chest. The machine's momentum did not just stop, it inverted. Its forward plating buckled under an invisible force, the heavy metal peeling back like wet paper. Had they truly not known? Julian's hands were already inside the machine's exposed chest. He reached through the distortion, his fingers finding the gaps in the biomechanical armor with a precision that was purely lethal. The violet glow of the plasma core illuminated his face, casting deep, sharp shadows across his focused features. With a single, explosive grunt of effort, Julian's hands closed around the pulsating center of the construct's life. He did not hesitate. He did not fear the heat, and she glowed with a deep, fierce violet, shattered its core barehanded. Broken. The machine collapsed into a heap of cooling scrap. Silence fell over the hall as the dust began to settle. The generals slowly peered over the edges of their cover, their eyes wide and disbelieving as they looked from the smoking wreckage to the humans standing over it. Julian was breathing heavily, his shoulders rising and falling with the exertion of the strike, but he remained upright. He did not look at the generals. He turned and walked back toward the throne, his boots crunching on glass. Vela watched him, her skin shifting to a warm, translucent amber. She felt a pride so intense it was almost painful, a heat that radiated from her dual hearts and filled her entire being. She had always known what he was. From the moment she had seen him standing in the ruin of his home world, she had sensed the sleeping storm. She had not chosen him because he was weak. She had chosen him because he was the only thing in the galaxy that did not need a throne to be powerful. Her consort, her human, her choice. Julian resumed his position exactly 1 step behind her chair. His hands were stained with violet coolant, and his thermal cloth was torn at the shoulder, but his posture was composed. He did not speak. He did not need to. He simply stood there, a shadow that had just broken a god. Vela noticed the cracked obsidian ring on his finger, fractured by the intensity of the psionic discharge. It was the ring from their bonding ceremony, a symbol of her permanent claim over him. She reached up and placed her hand over his, her crystalline fingers cool against his blood-warmed skin. The Zorian generals remained frozen, their dismissal replaced by a raw terror. They realized the human was not the pet. He was the weapon, and the sovereign was the only thing keeping him from tearing the world apart. "General Cax," Vela said, her voice cutting through the silence. "I believe we were discussing border stability." The general could only nod, his eyes fixed on the man standing behind her. The power dynamic of the room had shifted. The universe would learn what she had realized cycles ago. He had always been hers. Now they knew.